What's going on, folks? Just getting ready here. Give me 1 sec to just post this out. Give me 1 second. Tweet. And then we'll post this over on Facebook, and then we'll be all done. But yeah, we're gonna switch to things in just a sec here, and we'll be able to watch together. So give me 1 second. They're finishing up the guild gameplay, so hang on just 1 sec. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna move you guys over here, and then here we go. So this is it. We're gonna turn on the sound. I'll make it so you guys can actually hear it. Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear that. It should just be some music right now.
The inspiration for Potassio actually was a one-shot I ran. It's called like D&D Battle Royale, and I basically took video game battle royales. Fortnite has like a banana person, so I basically had this villain called
El Platador.
And there's this guy in a banana suit that ended up being like the deadliest person in the game. So I just wanted to somehow make this villain work in this contest. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make a fruit-themed, Latin American domain, and I have to put a banana guy in there somehow. So yeah, all because of video games and fruit. Creating an encounter with someone else's material, it was a curveball for sure. Yeah, I've been through the whole contest thinking I was going to do my own stuff.
It has been revealed already, but this is going to be...
all the content.
I'm going to mute that. This is going to be, I guess, more information. We're going to learn a little bit more about it. And then I will also be live streaming again tomorrow at, I guess, what will be 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, because that's when they're going to do the Future of D&D panel, and we should get the formal announcement of that thing that we kind of saw leaked on Amazon, though that might also come out later this evening / early tomorrow morning based on Amazon timelines. So, okay. By the way, folks, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't. 80K, we did it. That's thanks to all of you guys. Let's go for 100, or should we cut it and go 85, then 90, or should we just go all in? Let's go for broke and go for 100K. Them low, you good for volume. Yeah, I have it turned down for them. I'll crank it up once we get to the actual reveal. So, oh, here we go. All right.
Excited for this panel. If you're a dragon fan, and let's face it, who isn't a dragon fan, this is one for you. We are going to be diving into the upcoming book,
Here we go,
Fizban's
folks.
Treasury of Dragons. So who better to join me than senior designer James Wyatt, who I'm absolutely thrilled to
Writer
have
of the
with me
original
today.
Draconomicon.
We've got an hour. We're talking dragons. I couldn't
A
be
whole hour
happier.
of this, folks.
What a great way to spend an hour today.
Let me know how they sound, by the way, guys.
Dream come true. Now, I know people might not be familiar with Fizban's. Obviously, it's a newer book. It's about dragons, which we'll touch on later, but are actually a little bit rarer than you'd imagine for Dungeons and Dragons. So give us an overview of the book and why now?
So Fizban's Treasury of Dragons is a celebration of the dragons that gave D&D its name. It's a deep dive into the dragons you already know from the Monster Manual, as well as a whole bunch of new dragons and dragon-related creatures. Dragon-related character options, basically everything you could possibly want. I think of it as just a big toy box and full of toys to play with to bring dragons to life in your game.
And so why did you feel that we were missing this right now? Why have we decided that, okay, now is the time for a toy box full of dragons?
Really,
he made that
it's always
decision.
time for a toy box full of dragons, as far as I'm concerned. But, in terms of planning our product releases, after we did Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, whatever it's called, this was sort of our next awesome monster book, and we decided it was a good time to
I think you'd have
bring
D&D
dragons
books
into the
on the
mix
shelf
and really
behind him.
celebrate that aspect of the game.
So if people watching are familiar with kind of the Monster Manual or Volo's Guide, what does this add? What are we seeing here that we haven't seen before?
Let's take notes on important things we get revealed.
The basic structure of this book is similar to Volo's Guide in a lot of ways. Where,
similar to Volo's.
There's a big chapter of stat blocks at the end of the book that's about a third of the book. And then the other 2/3 of the book is more lore focused. Sort of. Another third of the book is that deep dive into each individual dragon kind, including the ones in the Monster Manual. So each kind of dragon gets layer maps and all sorts of tables to generate their personality and characteristics and treasures and monsters you might find associated with them and adventure hooks. Just ideas, hundreds of ideas sitting there latent, waiting to be activated.
Lore maps, in your game. Layer maps, lore.
The remaining third of the book is character options, spells, magic items, and more general advice about dragons and their life
spells
cycle
confirmed,
and,
magic items confirmed.
How are the goals of a wormling different from the goals of an ancient dragon and that sort of thing.
I mean, before we really dive into the book, because we'll go through it chapter by chapter and give people a brief overview.
Okay, chapter by chapter.
Dragons, because as I said earlier, it's a little bit strange, isn't it, that for something called Dungeons and Dragons, actually we don't often bring them in because they are this huge game changer, really.
Depends on your game.
They certainly can be, and this book is an invitation to embrace that and let dragons change your game in sometimes big and dramatic ways. If you want to just have a single encounter with a dragon that's sort of on the way to something else, you can totally do that, and this book has some advice for how to spice that encounter up too.
Okay,
but if you want to build an entire adventure around one or more dragons, or if you want to design your whole campaign world with dragons as a focus, this book is for you.
Good stuff.
Lots of inspiration and ideas around those concepts as well.
And what for you do dragons mean in the wider kind of D&D landscape? Because like you said, there are lots of different ways they can impact a campaign, your personal playstyle, your character, that kind of thing.
Dragons, to me, really embody the kind of fantasy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of 4/3 conversations about this book.
You put dragons into a story and you know it's a fantasy story. I know I'm going to love it pretty much right from that point on. They are these incredibly powerful magical creatures. They change the world around them with layer effects and regional effects.
Accurate.
They, breathe powerful energy.
There's a great ancient great worm.
They're just so steeped in magic.
That's cataclysmic.
It literally radiates.
That's a town,
body.
by the way,
so,
right there, showing size comparison.
They really resonate for me on a deep mythic level, right? Dragons are rooted deep in our mythology. I think most mythologies, and so they really get at what I love about fantasy and what fantasy means to me.
Okay.
I think that's how I feel about this book. Is I'm really excited for perhaps, as I said, DMs who've been a little bit nervous, or perhaps players who've thought that a dragon encounter is just
art
an
behind her new.
I
think that art is new.
So I think that's what I'm excited
Whatever that
about.
Green is it an emerald dragon maybe behind her?
Is that it really does give you lots of different options to incorporate it into your playstyle. So, let's talk through some of them. Let's have a brief run through chapter by chapter. I don't want to give it all away. I do want to encourage people to go out.
You got a whole hour. Give it away.
But let's talk a little bit about.
It's 8 minutes in. Give us the whole thing.
Chapter 1, which is character, basically, isn't it?
Right. So chapter 1 is character options.
Character options.
The big picture actually at the end of the chapter is we want to give you tools to tie any character into the story of dragons in your DM's world. Whether you're playing a sorcerer with a draconic origin right out of the player's handbook, or you're playing a cleric with a war domain and you want to say, you know what, my cleric worships Bahamut, and so my power is draconic in that way.
It's a cop-out in my mind.
So then, if you want to go a step beyond just the sort of flavor layer, that we have 3 new Dragonborn race options for chromatic, metallic, and gem Dragonborn.
Confirmed all 3
We've got
in.
2 new subclass options, the
Ranger
Drakeborn
and the Monk.
Ranger and the Way of the Ascendant Dragon Monk.
Okay.
And we've got 3 feats also tied to the 3
That's
big
just the
families
3.
of chromatic, metallic, and gem dragons
Okay.
that reflect a draconic
feats.
heritage of some kind for your character as well.
Okay.
That was maybe more detail than you needed, but
No.
just
Don't stop, James. Give us the
options
spells
available
too.
in
Come on,
chapter
buddy.
1 for characters.
So that means no
I mean,
kobold.
please, have you ever met a D&D player that was like, that was too much detail? I don't think that exists.
Oh no, don't tell me more.
Exactly. No. All right, chapter 2. This is our
All right,
magical
so
chapter.
no
It's spells,
kobold
magic items,
mention.
that kind of thing.
Spells, but we didn't
So
hear about
there's
them.
a handful of spells,
Oh, here
most
they
of
are.
which are named for famous dragons, which get some discussion later on in the book. And then magic items that you might find in a dragon's hoard. Some magic items that are tied to the gem dragons that are introduced later in the book.
Gem dragon specific
and this
magic
new
items.
category of magic items, hoard items.
Hoard
which,
items.
Get more powerful when they steep overnight in the hoard of an older dragon.
We heard
So
about these in the Dragon
more
Plus
powerful
article.
the dragon the hoard belongs to, the more powerful the magic item becomes. It's an idea that has showed up in D&D a lot over the years, the idea of a magic item that gets more powerful as you do. And here it's specifically tied to dragons and having access in some way or another to a dragon's hoard.
Okay. Just leaving it in a dragon's hoard overnight makes it stronger.
Oh, I love that idea. That's kind of exactly what I'm imagining when I think about, dragon-related magic items. So yeah, all right.
Awesome.
I feel like I should be making notes here. Okay, on to chapter 3, and this is for DMs to integrate dragons into
The
their
Unearthed Arcana Draconic
So
Options
chapter 3
kobold.
is called Dragons in Play, and it's really the big overview for
Dragons
the
in Play,
of
chapter 3.
how to build a dragon personality.
Okay,
building
dragon
on the
personality.
tables that are in the DMG
Good stuff.
for determining the personalities and characteristics of NPCs. This takes those same tables and gives them a draconic twist.
Okay, that's
How
good.
the
I'm down for
dragons
that.
are distinctive from each other. And it talks about age categories. It talks about where dragon eggs come from in a
Okay.
very non-biological way.
Dragon
Again,
eggs.
sort of touching on the mythic nature of dragons. It's a table, again, of inspiration for a DM. to
I'd be
say,
fine with
"In my
biological
world,
information
dragon
too,
eggs
honestly.
grow on a tree at the center of the world, deep underground maybe, or at the center of the map. And when a dragon wants to rear a wormling, it has to make a pilgrimage to this tree at the center of the world and get an egg, prove itself worthy. So that sort of thing. I mean, if you want to make dragons big flying lizards, you can, but the idea here is to inspire, again, that sort of mythic approach.
Interesting.
It talks about undeath, half dragons.
Half dragons? Okay, half dragons. Undead dragons?
And then sort of
He's
all
tiptoeing.
minions and stuff. And then a look at, again, crafting just a single encounter around a dragon, or crafting an adventure around a dragon, or
Encounter
crafting a
or
whole campaign
adventure,
in a
or a
world
whole
around
campaign.
dragons.
Okay, very cool stuff.
Chapter 3 in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, and I like that one because we'll come back to this later, because what we're going to do is talk through some different kind of scenarios, for how you can incorporate this book into your playstyle. But I think that's the one that lots of people are going to be really excited about is, how do they
Yeah,
flesh
he's tiptoeing
these
around.
creatures out to be, as fantastical as we hope they all can be, and yet still fit the campaign that you've worked so very hard on, even if your players are trying to ruin it.
Birds and the
as we
D's,
always are.
you guys.
So chapter 4 is,
All right,
as we
chapter
kind
4.
of just discussed, hordes actually. So tell me more, because this is layers and hordes, isn't it?
Layers and hordes, yes.
Layers and
so
hordes.
this one talks about the kinds of places where dragons like to make their lairs. Often
Okay.
a dragon will be attracted to a place that's magically significant in the world somehow, like a crater that exists because of God's footprint in the world there, or
That's cool.
a meteorite fell there.
I like
or
that a lot, actually, both
whatever
of those.
strange magical location causes a dragon to say, hey, this is a good place for a lair. Because dragons, by their nature, are really woven in with the fabric of the material
Thanks,
plane.
Joseph. Yeah, I'll do
That's why
some
you
sort
get
of
the
wrap
regional
up.
effects around a dragon's
the end.
lair, which then this chapter goes on to discuss more. Beyond the effects that are described in the monster manual, here's additional ideas along similar lines.
Yeah, there's the
And then
biological
hordes,
thing, meaning dragon
talking
descendants
about
makes, yeah, you're
what
perfectly
you find
on
in a
point
dragon's
there.
horde, curses that might be attached to a dragon's horde, weird
Dragon
quirks
horde
that might happen
curses?
with
Okay.
items that you take from a horde, things along those lines. Again, just as much story inspiration as we could cram into these pages.
All right, I'm down.
And so
Sure.
on to chapter 5, and this is where we're going to break down the different types of dragons, and also
Right.
I love the details on alignment here. You know,
They
and
said
how
there would
we
be
can
half dragons,
move past
yes.
perhaps how we've historically looked at different types of dragons.
Yes. So chapter 5, I call it the Draconomicon, in a nod to a couple of books from past editions of the game with that title. But this is let's go through 20 different kinds of dragons, and
Okay.
each one gets 3 to 6 pages of detail with
3
again
to
more
6
tables.
pages for each dragon. It's
So
not
you
a
mentioned
lot, but
alignment. There's a table of personality traits and a table of ideals for each dragon. And most of the entries on those tables cleave pretty closely to what the monster manual or chapter, the bestiary chapter of this book says about a dragon's alignment and personality. But at least one example in each table is an outlier, something that's a little different. A
Okay.
gold dragon with a bent toward evil, or a blue dragon with a bent toward good.
so they are acknowledging that that's possible.
Because, I mean, as the monster manual says, the descriptor of alignment for every creature in the monster manual is a guideline, not a rule.
Yeah.
So this is a way of highlighting, you know, you can absolutely use a gold dragon as a villain in your campaign, because just like people, they have the freedom to choose the path of evil if they want to. And they can be pretty terrifying villains if it comes to that.
And of course, chapter 6 is the one we all know and love, the bestiary. So tell me what we can look forward to in here.
So many dragons. There's about 80 stat blocks in this
80
chapter.
stat blocks.
It includes the new family of gem dragons, which
Okay.
are returning to D&D.
So that's
for the
20
first
of the
time in
80 stat blocks right there.
20 years almost.
So call it 60 stat blocks.
And so those are amethyst, crystal, emerald, sapphire, and topaz dragons. Then there's moonstone dragons from the Feywild.
Yep, moonstone,
There's
which will have age categories.
deep dragons that live deep in the Underdark.
Which will have
and
age
a bunch
categories.
of dragon-adjacent creatures. Things like the Elderbrain dragon that is a mind flayer Elderbrain saddled on the back of a dragon with its tentacles going into the dragon's brain and being really disgusting. Or the Horde Scarab, which is an insect that looks like a
Horde
gold
Scarab?
coin that
Those are from
might be
3.5.
mixed in
I
with
remember
the
those.
Dragon's treasure.
Very cool.
Or Dragonborn champions of the dragon gods, or
Dragonborn
humanoids
champions?
who are dedicated to a dragon's service,
NPCs.
or
Then.
aspects of the dragon gods. We have an aspect of Bahamut and an aspect of Tiamat.
No Sardior, though.
And
Bummer.
that's just getting started.
I mean, it really is, isn't it? I feel like we really dove in there, and yet that barely scratches the surface of what you can find in this book, genuinely. So,
There's
I
a
mean,
lot.
something else that's in there is lore. So talk to me about that,
Okay.
because, you know,
There are
all,
40
everybody
minutes
knows
left,
buy
and we
any book,
just
you're
went through
sucker for any
chapter by
new lore
chapter.
in there.
What are we
So
going to
can
talk
look
about for
forward
40
to?
minutes?
So there's a thread of lore running through the whole book that is an introduction to sort of new idea in D&D that we tease a little bit in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. The idea that there was a world at the very beginning of the material plane, the first world. And what Fizban's Treasury of Dragons tells us is that Bahamut and Tiamat worked together to create this first world and populate it. And that's the reason that dragons are so intricately connected to the fabric of the material plane, is they were there when the seed of the material plane was first created. And that first world it was scattered into seedlings, as
This is the
Tasha's
first
Cauldron
world
describes,
lore.
and
This is a
became
new
all
concept
the
as far as I'm
myriad worlds
aware.
of the material plane. So there's an idea then that every dragon on every world in the material plane has an
This is
echo
new lore, by
on
the way, for
other
the
worlds in
world
the material
of
plane.
D&D.
And so a dragon, say Klauth, in the world of the Forgotten Realms, might have an echo on Eberron and might be able to awaken his dragon sight and come into contact with that echo, or even fuse their consciousness, or even fuse their bodies and all their power together and become
A
more powerful dragon than even ancient Klauth. So this is the sort of nugget thread of lore throughout the book that I'm totally excited about because I love the multiverse in fantasy. I love places that exist in multiple places at the same time.
It's tricky. It can
Mirrors
be
that
fun.
show you other worlds.
But whoa,
Dragons
okay,
that
new
want
art.
to
Dragon Constellation Art.
Their fractured
This is
personalities
cool.
elsewhere in the
All right.
multiverse. It's cool and wild stuff that you can take or leave in your campaign, but I hope people will run with it.
I mean, take it. How do you make dragons cooler? I mean, add the multiverse.
40 minutes, folks,
Yeah,
left.
Exactly. I'm an absolute sucker for that. I mean, I can't wait for that. I love planes. I love all of that. So I feel like, it's such a gorgeous thread to pull. And as you said, I'm hoping people kind of weave it into their worlds. Also, I'm a Magic the Gathering fan, so I've got to ask, there's a little bit of Magic the Gathering here, teeny tiny little bit, isn't there, in this book?
Teeny tiny little bit. I couldn't let this book go without mentioning Tarkir, which is Magic's world of dragons.
All right. You give me a little on edge when you start mentioning putting your magic in my D&D again.
A dragon concept. I talk in here about you can build maybe the 15 families of dragons, 15 kinds of dragons, the chromatics, the metallics, and the gems, 5 of each. Maybe they each have their kingdoms in a world, or maybe they're like guild masters of a kind. But what Tarkir does is each of the 5 tribes or clans of Tarkir
420 viewers, boys, let's go.
Of draconic nature. So there's the claws and the wings and the eyes and the fangs of the dragons. So just another way of structuring dragon-y factions in a world and building a world around dragon concepts.
Well, whilst we're on the subject of building a world around dragon concepts, let's talk different scenarios, because as you said, this is just, I hope people realise, and from what you said so far, that this is such a wonderful toy box. It is packed with ideas. There are so
regarding the
many
new
ways
lore,
for you
people
to
are asking
build
questions.
this into
I'll
the
have to
way
read
that
it.
you play D&D.
It's not going to really impact my homebrew game.
An adventurer.
But...
So let's start with the scenario that I kind of mentioned at the beginning, which is a DM who's perhaps a little bit nervous about dragons.
Dragon harvesting and economy stuff is needed in this book.
How powerful they can be. Where should they start?
So if you're nervous about dragons, I would start probably with the section on building a dragon encounter. It's just a couple of pages. There's a great big table in there.
It should, guys. Rick C. In theory, people hitting like and engaging with this, commenting and whatnot, does drive it up in YouTube's algorithm. If you guys are trying to do that.
Strange things might
That's
happen.
up to you.
What the dragon might be concerned about as it's fighting characters. Maybe it doesn't want to fight, or maybe all it cares about is making sure that the characters don't find this one item in its hoard that it cares about more than anything else. That's a way of taking a dragon beyond the stat block.
Thank you, everybody.
Can be scary enough in itself, but then thinking about the dragon as a character with its own role in your world and its own concerns and cares. So I think that would be a fun place.
He's got a big focus on making the dragons characters, which I think is true. Dragons as a big scary monster and just being a monster is okay, but I think as a character is more interesting.
Say you are dragon mad, and that's, you're so excited, you want to dump your players right in a dragon's lair. How are we fleshing things out beyond that? How are we building a world beyond that initial kind of exciting location?
So as we were reviewing printouts of this book, I had the printouts with me on one side and my notepad on the other side as I was writing down ideas for my campaign that I really want to get started at some point.
I'll play in it, James.
To take this multiverse thread and blow it out in a campaign.
Let's go, James. Hit me up on Twitter. Let's play.
I would start at the end of chapter 3 as an experienced DM and think about how I want dragons to shape
new art, folks. New art.
And the fundamental underpinnings of my world. Do I want to build factions?
Is that like Elminster with a council of worms
around them, or have dragons as gods in my
something
campaign?
Going on there? New art.
Or
come on, more new art. Let's go.
Some kind of world-spanning campaign where characters end up traveling and meeting the echoes of different echoes of the same dragon in different contexts. What that might look like. Wow, there's just so much. Kind of a step back from that, I think, is the middle ground of, okay, let's really build out a dragon adventure here. I've got a layer map in that big Chapter 5 Draconomicon. I've got tables to give me adventure hooks. I've got tables that suggest other creatures I might put around
minions
lair,
and lesser
or
characters. That's good stuff for people who don't know, even for people who do know.
Lots of tools to use there to build a dragon adventure.
Oh, it could have been Fizban. That's true.
Again, really
I didn't
just
even think about that
to the dragon
with the
thing.
council.
I mean, this is kind of a personal question because in the group, in my D&D group, we are really wild and we just, run into every encounter. We are a nightmare to keep alive. So I guess one of the things we should discuss is combat and the combat approach to having a dragon in your campaign. Because, whilst we're saying that they're flexible and you can kind of build your campaign around them, a dragon can also kill your entire party.
It can, but dragons have challenge ratings just like any other monster, and they're more or less accurate.
No, they're not, James. You don't have to lie.
The challenge for a DM always is finding the right level of, okay, we want this to be a challenging encounter, not too easy, but probably not annihilate you all. Probably this time.
Yeah, dragon tactics would be great. How they fight.
How powerful a dragon do we want to choose here?
Would be amazing.
The beauty of this book is there's a whole bunch
we've seen
more
this.
dragons.
This is old hat.
The entire
this
range
one.
of challenge ratings from 1 to 30.
1 though to 30.
Holes right at the very, very top, but those characters don't get at that level anyway. So lots of nuance and different challenges to throw at a party at any level.
Something else I was wondering about is if you are in one of those kind of year-long,
I don't think they're going to change stat blocks for existing dragons.
Quite fleshed out. How do you build a dragon encounter in a way that gives it, you want it to have?
I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't variant dragon abilities. That would be a no-brainer if it was me.
How do you build it in such a way that you don't have to rebuild your entire world? You don't have to, retcon the history you've built over years, but it still feels impactful and momentous, and once that encounter's finished, players will remember it in a way that didn't feel like something you just dropped in. So
there's a couple of things I would think about there. One is making sure that the dragon really stands out as a character.
These are good tips, right, guys? Dragons make the dragons unique.
What does it want?
They are thinking.
Why
they are intelligent creatures, not just a mindless lizard.
And giving it a chance to talk in between breath weapons and claw bite routines.
Sure. All right.
To make sure that personality comes through.
This is good
but
stuff.
Then also, building up to the dragon encounter is super important, and thinking about dragons as movers and shakers in the world, as creatures that have minions and servitors working for them.
Well, that's new art, but it's just a blue dragon.
There's a whole section that talks about how some dragons are
somebody's talking in the background
to their minions, and some are more like war leaders that form armies around them. Or some are more like an organized crime family. So having characters sort of work their way through the outer rings.
We got a half an hour left to talk about this, folks. There's a lot left to go on.
Okay, we're trekking through the wilderness to the dragon's lair there now. We can see, although then there's that, trekking through the wilderness to the dragon's lair, you have all these regional effects surrounding the site of the lair, which again, we expand on some in chapter 4 to build up the sense of, okay, we're going to be fighting a dragon. This is kind of terrifying. Make sure you know what you're getting into, and they will remember that long after, I think.
I mean, I have to say, I kind of want to pause and text my DM, Dragon Mafia.
Sure. Dragon Mafia is an interesting concept, too.
That's no idea.
Dragon-run Thieves Guild, idea of them something like that.
Movers and shakers. I think that's a really
criminal underground run by a dragon. That could be very interesting.
That D&D landscape.
I might use that.
That world is absolutely Dragon Mafia, movers and shakers. I feel like that's exactly it. So I wanted to ask how would you, with all your experience, with all your love for dragons, how would you incorporate dragons now? How would you build your ideal dragon adventure?
I'm still working on it, but I definitely want to do something where all the characters have some significant draconic tie in their backstory. Maybe they're dragon-marked characters from Eberron, or dragon-blooded sorcerers, or
An hour. They're gonna milk this for an hour.
subclasses in
That's
this
the
book,
time
or
we have
like
allotted for
Dragonborn
this.
options, or some other
Maybe
connection to
45
dragons.
minutes if they cut
might
in some
come from
commercial
all different
breaks.
worlds, and I'm going to pull them together with some kind of dragon, maybe a crystal dragon. The gem dragons, one of the characteristics
Crystal
of gem
Dragon
dragons
art!
is that they tend
Crystal
to be
Dragon art!
more aware of
That's
the
new.
many worlds of the material plane and their echoes on other worlds than
I think that's
chromatic and
Crystal
metallic
Dragon.
dragons are. So they're a good sort of hook for that.
This is worth it just to watch for the art.
Maybe they end up with a crystal dragon patron and then a dragon on a different world who is an echo of that crystal dragon, who is the big villain of the campaign, but then lots of other dragons along the way, dragon organizations. So we talk a little bit in this book about the Chamber from Eberron, which is an organization made up of dragons. And there's a couple other dragon organizations as well. One is sort of an apocalyptic cult that wants to see all the fragments of the first world reunited.
I'm really digging this mafia angle.
I can probably run with that. I think I'm going to run with that.
I mean, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
The echo stuff can be very interesting, I think. It has a lot of potential.
This is a 224-page book, and it is all my ideas for my next campaign, which might be a little too much.
Did he say 224 pages?
My next couple of campameans.
That seems small.
As I said, though, there's no such thing in D&D as too much. There is no such thing.
I haven't watched anything except for this panel.
The multiverse just a little bit more, because it is one of my favorite things. It's so exciting to see it here, as you said. So tell me a little bit more about why you felt like that kind of multiverse thread. That,
maybe it was 324 pages. That would be a little more realistic.
Fit for the world of dragons.
The real key to that is actually the regional effects that surrounded Dragon's Lair in the Monster Manual.
Hey, I got you, Tyler.
Enjoy.
Get some rest.
This is sort of a grand unified.
Yeah, I'm hoping he maybe meant to say 324 pages. Moonstone Dragon, again.
Dragon's Lair
seen this already, but here it is again.
A dragon radiates around into the world. That sort of explains why they collect hordes, because
80 stat blocks, however, 20 of those stat blocks are gem dragons.
In a sort of jokey but sort of real way, they're materialistic. Because they're part of the material plane.
224 is way too short.
I lost my train of thought, but it's
Wild
coming
Beyond
back.
the Witchlight is. Hang on.
So,
Wild Beyond the Witchlight
dragons are so
is
so
250.
essential to the game.
252. Wild Beyond the
Again, part
Witchlight.
of the name of the game.
It's an extra 25 pages for an
that,
adventure. So
that we had an explanation or an understanding of why that is, and why every D&D world has dragons in some form or another. Why dragons have such a monumental impact.
I don't think they'll be
stories of our
reprinting the
worlds.
stat blocks for the chromatics and metallics. I think they'll be printing lore for them, but still referencing the player or the monster manual with potential of variant abilities.
It's an event that might or might not have happened in the distant past.
Yeah, I'm saying like Eberron was 320.
It's a convenient explanation for some things that are observably true about dragons in the game, at least in the worlds we know about. Maybe in your world, dragons are completely different. And there's probably a reason for that, and that's also cool. The introduction to the book touches a little bit on how... They're
not going to talk about the monk at all, I don't think.
Look on some of the main worlds of D&D. And your answer might be completely different. And
they mentioned that the monk will be in the book. Really That's the extent of the mention of the monk.
I have just wandered a lot.
No, I mean, I literally that was kind of exactly what I was looking for. I'm interested in.
Yeah, 224 has me worried.
How can you seed that through your campaign? Because I feel like this is one of those lovely, areas where
I love Drakeward and I want to play it.
It's
the first time I've ever wanted to play a ranger. One thing I will say,
pick up on things.
the preview did not include extra spells at every level, like all of the new rangers have, and the Arnoth Arcana did. So I don't know if that was an oversight or not, but something to consider.
I would totally start with things like books or works of art or other objects that are clearly not from around here, and figuring out where they came from becomes part of the mystery.
Okay, so even the 3E Draconomicon was 288, so...
There's little bits...
Text was smaller in 3.5, though.
There's, like, a book that talks about the history of Malatane what is this Malatane place? Hints at the world beyond Barovia in that adventure. And so I'm imagining a similar
Thank you,
sort of
Joseph.
thread here.
Thank you,
as
everybody, for all the love.
Explore stuff around a dragon or find things.
I'll
in a
check.
dragon's
I don't
lair.
actually think we're going to
What are
get more
things that are
previews,
pointing
but I
you
could be
to
wrong.
A world that's bigger than you thought it was.
Try to check it over here in the meantime.
That's the sort of dawning realization I want players to experience is, this is not just about this one dragon that we just killed. So. We thought we were done. Oh no, we're not done. And maybe at some point, you're in a dragon's lair and you start, like, there's a tunnel opening with a weird shimmer of light in it, and you glance that way and you see yourselves, except it's not you. It's
I checked for previews. We still don't have a preview number 4 yet.
On a different world of the material plane, exploring a different dragon's lair. Yeah, all sorts of awesome stuff like that.
Oh, it sounds amazing, doesn't it?
It was an idea to use the dragons as like a
what
mafia.
Are you most excited to see people get their kind of teeth stuck into? Because this has been a labour of love for you. This is, something that clearly you're incredibly passionate about. So what can't you wait to see people try out?
I can't wait to meet people and start hearing stories about how they used this book.
James, Codepax Unplugged, my dude. Let's hook up. I'd love to meet up and chat with you about dragons.
Will find something different that catches their imagination and sparks their campaign ideas and leads them in wild and wacky new directions. Really, like when I commissioned freelance writers to work on Chapter 5, the Draconomicon, I told them what I'm looking for is story condensed down into tiny nuggets that will fit on a table.
Collector's edition would be at a local game shop or hobby store,
bombs.
if you can get it.
You step on this and suddenly you're
well, we still have 25 minutes left to go.
It's a challenging form of writing, and the writers did a great job with it, and that's my hope, is I want to hear all the stories of the cascading explosions that happened as you started reading through this and just found yourself chasing all these ideas and where they led. So really, there's not one thing that I hope people are excited about. It's the total effect of playing in this toy box. Both.
He seems passionate, which I will give him credit for.
This? Because obviously, as you said, you worked with new voices.
So I do think it doesn't seem fake or false, his excitement about the book, which I do appreciate. I think that it seems his excitement is genuine. And he seems like he's so excited to just wants to give it all away, but he's tiptoeing around it because he doesn't want to get in trouble, but he wants to tell us everything.
So the outside freelance writers all worked on Chapter 5, so each of them got a couple of kinds of dragons to do their deep dive on. And the beauty there is that we could have...
we know that the Ascendant Dragon Monk is coming, and that's it. I've been saying that from the start of the first announcement. Nobody listens to me. There will be 2 subclasses in this book, and no more. Drake Warden, Way of Ascendant Dragon Monk. That is it. Nothing more.
Bestiary and the
2 subclasses in a non-subclass specific book is the standard.
Has more rule-focused content, with
the exception of Wild Mount, which is not the standard.
And then I did a lot of the writing on chapters 3.
They confirmed Gem Dragonborn will be in it, Metallic Dragonborn will be in it, Chromatic Dragonborn will be in it. No mention of kobolds.
Of dragons as part of the material plane was there and consistent and coherent. But really, the freelance writers, I hired them for their...
They did have spells.
Bomb ideas, and that's what we got.
No, I mean, and that's
they mentioned that it's coming in this, the monk,
like you said,
but nothing about it.
You can feel different voices, but in a way that feels very unified. I like that you're kind of, the
No,
unified.
I have not heard about more subclasses.
It feels, pulled together, but still, as we were saying before,
2 subclasses. 2. Count on 1, 2 subclasses in this book. No more, no less. Also, that's the end of subclasses that we know about until sometime next year, when we may or may not get more.
Something else I'm interested in is how you start to design a dragon. Because for me, I cannot imagine being given a more dream assignment than, go home and just invent a dragon that's going to slot into D&D.
2 subclasses.
Well, in terms of the new dragons,
The
in
UA
the
did
Eastgate
have
chapter,
spells, and they did confirm
most
there
of
will
them
be new
actually,
spells in this as well.
have been carried forward from past editions of the game. So a number of us did somebody, I don't even know who it was, somebody compiled a great big list of all these dragons from past editions, and a number of us went through it and sort of rated them. Yes, these are ones I definitely want to see again. I have a strange soft spot in my heart for the gem dragons, and I was very
You leave
glad
out
that
song
everyone else
dragons?
was on board
James.
with bringing them forward.
Why you
into
do me
fifth
like that, my
edition with
dude?
us. But
Orange
I remember
dragons?
getting the issue of Dragon Magazine in 1980.
Fang
when they first
dragons?
appeared, and I've been in love with them ever since.
Mithril, steel, mercury dragons? Nobody
So,
wanted those?
I guess looking at something like the Elderbrain Dragon or the Eye Drake, the Beholder Dream of Dragon
Dude,
kind of thing.
breaking my heart.
It's a beautiful sort of, let's extrapolate from what we know about dragons in the world and other creatures in the world and how they might interact with each other and relate to each other. If a dragon encroaches on a beholder's lair and the beholder becomes obsessed with it, well,
No
we've said
mention
that
of
beholder kin
draconians.
come about formed from the dreams.
But
of
I think they're going to
beholders.
be like, they
Wow,
mentioned
that's
like
weird. Okay, so what
dragonborn
happens when a beholder
champions.
dreams
I
about
think
a
it's going to
dragon
be like
because it's so
draconians in some
obsessed with this
instances.
intruder encroacher? Turns out you get a really weird looking monster, and it's awesome. So there is no one process. It's a lot of let's build on what's in the game already and make sure that things fit coherently into.
As far as we
into the
know,
whole.
the Elder Brain Dragon and the Eye Drake are the
And
only
when you're
ones.
updating something, so I love, you talking about seeing dragons, the gem dragons for the first time, in 1980. What are you looking to consider when you update it? Because obviously D&D has changed, not a huge amount, but D&D is different now. Players are different now. We've got new audiences, people who perhaps wouldn't have played D&D before. So what are the considerations
Right,
when
I'm
you're
curious here.
taking something and then making it for modern audiences?
So the beauty is that there was never a whole lot said about the gem dragons in the past. I mean, that original dragon article gave each kind of like a couple sentences. There was more in second edition and some in third edition. But the fundamentals are consistent across every iteration. These are dragons that are not aligned with either Bahamut or Tiamat. They're traditionally neutral.
They have their own god. Come on.
They have breath weapons that are very different from the chromatic and metallic dragons. The chromatic and metallics share the
Elemental.
fire, cold, lightning, acid, and chromatics get poison as well. But the gem dragons have breath weapons that are like a burst of light, dealing radiant damage, or psychic damage, or force damage, or necrotic damage, or the fifth one that I always forget.
Thunder.
So that
I don't think we're going to see
a big part of
Sardior.
their identity is they're different in a weird and cool way.
There is a gem dragon god,
so that was pretty
Sardior,
easy
the
to
ruby
maintain.
dragon.
That traditional neutrality kind of situates them with a focus on observing the world, learning about the world, maintaining balance in the world, not getting really deeply invested and involved in the world the way that chromatics and metallics might, unless it serves their purposes, which are mysterious. And I've forgotten now what your original question was and whether I ever answered it or not.
Oh my
Because
god.
I'm just talking about dragons and I love dragons.
I know, that's how I feel. That's what we were saying earlier, weren't we? They are going to actually have to pull us off air because it's just a dragon deep dive. What more could you want?
Yeah.
No, you totally
No,
answered
thunder
my
is
question,
thunder
which was,
damage.
how
Force
do you
is force
update
damage.
something
Two
like that.
separate
And I
things.
love the fact that it's, there wasn't a lot there to begin with. That's, that's always helpful for, fleshing something out. So, as I was saying, we have got new audiences. We do have, I think, more D&D players than we've ever had before. So if you are a new player and you have joined because of the Dungeons and the Dragons, where should they start? Because
Thunder
I feel
is essentially
there's gonna be
sonic
some stuff in the
damage,
book
correct.
that will be a little bit advanced for them yet. Won't be.
Yeah.
They won't be that
I
familiar
mean,
with D&D,
I'm
so where
willing
should they
to.
begin?
I've had interviews where I've
Well-
gone off tangent and I just forgot what I was talking about. But you got to bring
That's
it
a fine
back.
question. Anywhere really. I would say flip through the book and look for inspiration. I mean, if you're a brand new DM and you're running Lost Mine of Phandelver or something,
Guys, and your simple-ass questions.
like really brand new, I'm running the Start a Set Adventure. Oh, there's a dragon in there. Is there inspiration?
Yeah, there was a
look at
sage
the Green
advice
Dragon
thing.
section
I don't
in
know
chapter
if
5.
it ever
Is there
came out.
anything in there that might inspire your portrayal of the Green Dragon in Thunder Tree? I think is where the dragon is. Or look at chapter 3. Is there anything you want to say about dragon personality or this is a young dragon. What does that mean about its perspective on the world?
I don't know when the
And
Sage
to see if
Advice
that
Live thing
inspires
was.
you off in new directions as you run that adventure or
Tomorrow?
plan whatever comes next for the characters.
Noon Pacific time tomorrow
Yeah,
is
think
Ask
that
the
was a
Sage
fun
Live,
starting point.
where
Now I
you're
actually
asking
kinda
Jeremy
wanna do
Crawford
that.
questions
I
live.
want to sit down with Vandover and think, okay, I'm going to run with this dragon and do something new.
I mean, that's a great point because I hadn't thought of that. Of course, if you have picked up the Essentials kit and you're following that adventure there, there's a fantastic dragon there for you to go.
I think I might make a Blue
like
Eyes
you
White
said,
Dragon
that's what's great
stat
about this
block
book.
and
You
just
can go and
release it
dive
for
in,
free
you can
because it would
take
be
little
fun for
bits,
me.
you can work it into
And
wherever
obviously
you
a
are,
Red
wherever
Eyes
you're playing, and that is
Black Dragon
a
as
really
well.
great point. The Essentials kit is such a fantastic starting point, and it ties in so very neatly with Fizban's Treasury. I think
Dragon
that's something
Turtle
you can
also in
definitely
there. They're
use
adding
together.
age categories
so
to Dragon
you're running
Turtle.
Dragon
So
of Icespire Peak, right? And the players know it's got a white dragon right there on the cover.
So
Obviously,
add
they're gonna be
those
fighting
in
a
as
white
extra
dragon,
stat
but you
blocks as
sneakily
well.
grab Fizban's and you pull out the Crystal Dragon instead. How does that change the adventure? It changes everything, and it's awesome. Right? And you can totally just upend everything that the characters are expecting from what they see on the cover of the book, without changing the map or anything.
Oh yeah, I'd obviously have to do
Essential to the
1,000
adventure.
Dragon. Time Wizard was my favorite
no,
card
exactly. I
in
wanna
one
do
of my
that too.
Yu-Gi-Oh days.
Yeah. Make another note. I've got so many notes.
1,000
So,
Dragon.
what does it feel like to be finished with this book? Because it feels like something that just it sounds like a dream to have worked on.
It was a dream to work on, and it was actually the first project that I worked on after I returned from a long 7-year stint on the Magic the Gathering team. So I worked on D&D for a long time. I went off and worked on Magic. I came back and they handed me Fizban's. I said yes. It was kind of
there's a god
whirlwind
of time.
schedule.
Chronepsis, I think, is a god of
and
death and time.
quite
It's
a
a dragon
wild
god.
ride
I
for
don't know
my
if there's
first
technically a chrono
trip all the
chrono
way
dragon.
back.
There might be though. There's a ton of
and
dragons.
It feels really good
so.
to be done. Although
Harpy's
I went
pet dragon,
straight from
sure.
finishing
Why
Fizban
not?
to helping to finish Strixhaven, the Curriculum of Chaos, to right into my next project, and it took a while before I could actually have.
I
a
think they
vacation,
did mention
but
something about
I've had that
multi-headed
vacation
dragons
now,
as
and
like
I feel much
aspects
better.
of
Thank you very
Tiamat
much.
was a thing.
I'm very glad.
Which is
to
why
hear
I'm
it
able
all
to
now,
form coherent sentences. Sorry, what?
No, I was just going to say, I'm very glad you've had a vacation because exactly, I needed you here to tell me everything I wanted to hear about dragons. So I'm glad you had that
Exactly.
break, you came back, good to go.
Yes.
So let's talk about the art in this as well. We should probably sneak that in before this panel.
Okay,
finishes,
let's get
because
some
it is
art. Let's get some art. Let's go, go, go. Come on.
absolutely stunning. So just
15
tell
minutes
me
of art.
about the process of
Come
that
on.
and what you were looking for.
So there's a secret, maybe not so secret, that we were able to pick up art for this book from the Magic set, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which had a lot of freaking amazing dragon art in it.
Come on.
So you will find as you flip through the pages of the book, lots of just gorgeous
We've seen
pieces
this
blown up
already.
from tiny card size to half-page wonders. As far as the new art goes, we commissioned things like illustrations for the new monsters.
Yeah,
Had
right.
a lot of fun working
First
with
we get a
Sean Wimmer, our
pencil.
in-house concept artist, on figuring out what the gem dragons were going to look like in this iteration, building on their identity from past editions. That's probably what I should have talked about when you asked that question before.
Yeah.
But then also brainstorming what the new things were going to be. There's a section I glossed over in chapter 2 on draconic gifts, which
okay.
is building on the mythology of what happens if you bathe yourself in the blood of a dragon or drink the blood of a dragon.
What? Okay.
Ew, but whatever.
13 minutes. You give us this now?
So we commissioned a piece of art of a warrior standing beside a dead dragon and holding up a chalice of its blood as if she's going to pour it on herself, maybe, or drink it, maybe, or whatever.
Can we get that art? Come on.
And there's Fizban appears in a lot of the art in various forms. So we should probably talk about Fizban.
Yeah.
Since,
How about
his name
that?
is on
It's
the
a
book.
titular character.
Fizban is a character who appeared in the Dragonlance novels. Not many years after the Gem Dragons first appeared in Dragon Magazine, actually. So he appears as this sort of doddering old wizard with.
That was probably
personality,
Fizban
and
with those other
casts spells
dragons.
and has hilarious mishaps. And it turns out he's actually an avatar of the god Paladin, who is Bahamut. So he is the dragon god of good.
Yeah, we haven't heard
working
anything
among
about
mortals in
harvesting
subtle,
dragons, which has me a
mysterious ways
little
to,
worried,
help
honestly.
them combat the threat of the evil Tikhisis, aka Tiamat. So with Bahamut, there's been an idea throughout the history of the game that one of the things he does is he takes on human form and wanders around the world.
No, we're just going to talk about the art. We're not going to show you the art.
Gold dragons in disguise.
So
we have art throughout the book of him, sometimes looking like Fizban from the novels, and as we see him in the introduction to the book, but then sometimes in
mentions dragon boons. Completely ignores it.
Including the art for Bahamut from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, the Magic card again, where he was a planeswalker, accompanied by his canary friends.
Can we see it, please?
There's also subtle canaries throughout the graphic treatment in the book, which I'm delighted by.
Yeah.
Look for the last
Picture's
one.
worth 1,000 words, James.
And only 6 chapters
Picture's
in the book,
worth 1,000 words.
Figure something out.
What you got for me, buddy?
I like that. That's very D&D, isn't it? There's another little secret in there. You've got to find it. You've got to dive through. How much crossover? I know there's not a huge amount of crossover between Magic the Gathering and D&D, other than the quite literal recent crossover. But for you, having just come from that world and now working on this, and dragons are such a big deal in both. Did you pull anything from Magic the Gathering?
I know he doesn't get to call those shots on the art. I'm just giving him a hard time because he's the face, but no, he doesn't get to make that call.
The focus is definitely on D&D dragons. Most worlds of Magic, dragons are just kind of big monsters. Which is a perfectly valid approach for dragons. Tarkir being the big example where they really are.
You should have seen me during last year's D&D Live.
The leaders of these clans. So the focus really is on D&D dragons here, and what makes D&D dragons unique and distinctive is largely these families of chromatic, metallic, and gem dragons. So that's where we spent most of our focus. Again, with that nod to Tarkir being the one big exception in making sure that Magic was represented.
Yeah, I'm very glad it was. I have to say I did a little squeal when I saw that bit. Very excited. So for you, if not everybody does pick up a D&D book. Some people
they kind of skirted Dragonlance a little bit. What happened? Last year's D&D Live was
grabbing outside.
It was a nightmare.
If you had to persuade somebody, give them
everything was all over the place.
The sales pitch for this. Why is this something so essential to your D&D world?
They have new original dragons. There will be some new original dragons. Moonstone and Deep specifically.
Achilles' heel is maps, and I would buy this book just for the Dragon Lair maps. I
don't think anybody wasted money. I think this book's going to be amazing. I think this reveal a little subpar, but I think the book's going to be phenomenal.
You can just pick up and adjust the scale if you want to. If it's a younger dragon, make it a little smaller.
Yeah, dude, the cooking show.
If it's a great worm,
that was
beyond
wild.
Dragon, make it a little
last
bigger.
Year, where the lower thirds blocked what people were cooking. And
along with that,
people just walking around their house with shaky cell phone cam.
How experienced or creative needs inspiration from time to time, and I'm convinced that you will find something. One of those idea bombs is going to explode in your head and set off a cascade of cool new ideas that will improve and inspire your adventures in the future. And if not that, lots of new monsters.
Yeah, 80 stat blocks is a lot. We realize it's not actually 80.
It's going to be perfect for your next adventure.
It's going to be significantly less. Well, 80.
Audience.
It still is 80 stat blocks, but some of them are just age tiers. A lot of them seem to be age tiers, from what I can tell.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up layer maps, actually, because they are brilliant. And I do think that is something that is just so useful to everybody. It is just instant world building, isn't it? So what for you goes into the building of a layer map? What do you need to consider? What are you thinking about?
So this is the beauty of it, really, is I get to think as little as possible about it because, as I said, that's my weakness. And working with Dice and Logos is a dream.
No, Fizban's still happening.
I first worked with him with Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, where I could say, okay, we need you to draw adventure site maps for each of the 10 guilds of Ravnica. Here's what their architecture is like. Here's the kind of place you might consider. Please go and give us something awesome. And
part 2 to the book would be amazing, right?
To be able to do that
Fizban's Volume 2, I would love
He's
that.
He's deeply steeped in D&D lore, so I could send him, here's what the Monster Manual says about...
Yeah, could have been a blog post.
Where red dragons like to live, please give me something. And he did. So
Andrew's got it right. Based on past experience, someone's going to tweet a super relevant reveal in like 6 hours that will have been way more information than the entire news event, like they did with the Eliwick Tumblestrom stuff.
What else in these layers, and you can populate them however you want. And it's just
anything about what else?
It was awesome.
Stat blocks. Yeah, we got the chapter by chapter breakdown earlier on.
Get started early working on the map sketches so that the writers for that chapter could to write to his maps and say, okay, here's what this feature is, and explain what you're seeing on the map in the text as well. So everything sticks together. And
there's a Christopher Lloyd-esque vibe going from James Wyatt there.
The answer might just be layer maps again, but I was going to ask for you personally, what's the most useful section of the book? What do you think, would be, if you were picking this up and hadn't been involved, where would you be?
Didn't she ask that question already?
Well, I would definitely start with the layer maps, but and then the monsters. So I'm trying to think beyond that.
Yeah, you could tell. I've seen Chris Perkins gets like this in these interviews too, where you could see he wants to tell people more. And I feel like people are like, "Oh, Chris, you weren't supposed to say that," and he's just like, "I don't care."
My daughter ran me on a D&D one shot for my birthday because I have the best daughter ever. But I really groove on the stuff in chapter 3. All the diverse sections about organizations and mythic inspiration and personality and age categories and reproduction, eggs and half.
Yeah, man. Well, we want a volume 2, and I'll tell you why when this ends.
Much there,
so I'll give you guys a couple minutes after this part of the stream ends. We'll chat for a little bit. Then I gotta pop off and go work on some other stuff.
I feel like I'm gonna have to follow up with you in a couple of months from now and just be like, tell me everything. What did you do? Because it feels like you are just full of ideas and inspiration. Even though this is what I find so exciting is that this is your
book for each kind of dragon would be amazing. They will never do it, but it would be amazing.
The fact that you still get so much inspiration from it, that it's still, as we've sat here now in this deep dragon hour, you've still had ideas. It's still sparked things for you. I think that is proof, if proof were needed, that this is a book that is going to have something for everybody. Like you said, I love this ideas bomb, that you will open it and it just, it did for me. You just start thinking, oh, this would work here. This would be fantastic. I've never considered this before. There's so much to it.
Sam, we're doing good. We're winding down.
For me, is so exciting. But before we go, I just want to give you a chance to give a kind of one sentence pitch for this book. I know I said for new people, but for anybody, for everybody there watching.
She did this at least twice. Why should they buy it?
It's got dragons in it.
Okay.
I should not have expected anything less.
It is a Treasury of Dragons. I love that title that we landed on for it because it hints at the idea of dragon treasure, but really it is all about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Offering
didn't
you all
really
the
wind
treasures
up,
of
but...
dragondom in this book.
Wow, what a wonderful way to finish. Absolutely a Treasury of Dragons. So, of course, don't forget that you can pre-order this now. It's out on October the 19th. So, of course, get your pre-orders in for Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. But all that's left to say is this has been a dream come true for me, a dragon dream come true. So, James, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Well, we've got a break coming up. You probably need to cool off after all that dragon action. So don't worry. Go wipe your brow, and then afterwards we'll be back with the Dungeon Master Roundtable. It's going to be a good one, I promise.
All right. So there we go. That's our hour-long reveal. Some people said it could have been a blog post. I don't disagree. So there was some good takeaways for sure. 80 stat blocks. It's only 224 pages, which we've confirmed is the same as Volo's guide. But it has a ton of lore. It also has character options. It's got the two subclasses. It has the 3 Dragonborn, the updated version of the Chromatic, Metallic, and Gem Dragonborn. It has new spells, new magic items, including the concept of these horde magic items, horde maps, lair maps, dragon personality, lore about the different kinds of ecology and patterns and stuff of a variety of the different dragons, and then the 80 stat blocks in the end of it. Now, the 80 stat blocks, we know that 20 of those stat blocks are the 4 age categories for the gem dragons, right? So we have 5 new gem dragons. Each dragon has wormling, young, adult, ancient. There's 20 there. We also know that they added deep dragons and moonstone dragons. So in theory, that's another 10 of those 80 stat blocks there, giving them 4 age categories. So now we've cut that 80 stat blocks down to 50. Right? I'm doing my math right. And we know that they were going to add additional stat blocks for a dragon turtle to cover the different age categories of a dragon turtle. So you can take out 3 more, because we have the stat block for the dragon turtle in the monster manual. I think that's an ancient dragon turtle in the monster manual. So then we need the other 3. So that will cut us down to 47 new stat blocks. We have the Elder Brain Dragon, which I assume will just be 1 stat block. I could be wrong. So that will cut us down to 46. And we know the Eye Drake is coming, which cuts us down to 45. We also know that there will be champions, draconic, like half dragon or dragonborn champions of the various dragon gods or other gods and things. So there's going to be a handful of different NPCs in that respect. I believe we've heard draconians will be in it, which may be mixed in with that. So exactly how many entirely brand new stat blocks we have not heard about in the grand scheme of thing, I'm thinking we're looking at something like 30. 30 stat blocks for things we have not had announced. Oh, we heard the Horde Scarab was another one, right? So 30 is what I'm thinking. 30 stat blocks for stuff that's completely, wholly new to us or we haven't had mentioned in the past. That's kind of where I'm landing. Either way, that's still a lot of stat blocks. How much lore and information can you fit in a 224-page book with 80 stat blocks and character options and spells and stuff? I don't know. Oh, we also know there's going to be 3 feats. The Gift of the Chromatic, Gift of the Metallic, Gift of the Gem Dragon. We got those in the Unearthed Arcana. They'll probably be updated for the final product, but we got those as well. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, so basically take a look at what was released in the subclasses. Right? We had the subclasses part 5, which was the Drake Warden and the Ascendant Dragon Monk. We already have the updated preview of the Drake Warden showing the improvements, but like I said, the improvement, the preview of the Drake Warden does not include 5 spells. Like all new Rangers get spells. It does not include those. So I don't know if that's just they left it out, or if they meant to leave it out, or it was just an accident, or what it was. So we might not be getting spells for the Drake Warden, or we might, and it's just a mistake. We had the feats in the Draconic Options UA. They're probably going to be changed to be more in line, because right now, like, Gem Dragon is the only one that gives you an ability score improvement. The other 2 don't. I imagine they're kind of probably going to try to make that even across the board. And we had the spells as well in the Draconic Options. Those will probably get either updated, some might get cut, and then they might get changed spell lists and things. Let's see. What do we got? Great Worms. Yeah, they mentioned a lot about Great Worms, the concept of a dragon and its echo on another plane of existence, coalescing either in mind and spirit or in physical body to become a true Great Worm, which is like a cataclysmic thing, severely more powerful. If you think about it as a dragon and it being split into however many material planes there are, say there's 5 material planes, and you are the dragon proper here on material plane 3. But your soul and your power is split between 5 different planes. You are only as powerful as you are. But if you were to absorb, like a Namekian, right? You were to absorb the other people, the other aspects of your body to become one whole dragon, you become supercharged and fused together and superpowered, or a fusion situation. And you'd be super strong. And that's what the concept of how a Great Worm works. Which I do think could be very good for gameplay. I think that could be very fun. The 2 Dragon God aspects, which someone brought up as well, those are 2 more stat blocks. Weird that there's no Sardior stat block. We've mentioned it a couple times. If you're unaware, the gem dragon god, like Bahamut is the metallic dragon god and Tiamat is the chromatic dragon god. Sardior is the dragon god of gem dragons, which is the only known ruby dragon. Which is why, if you noticed in the gemstone dragons, we had emerald and sapphire, but no ruby. It's because there's only one ruby dragon, and that's the god. Just like how we don't have platinum dragons, really, technically, right? We have one platinum dragon, in theory, and that's Bahamut. We might get stat blocks for Great Worms. Someone brought that up. In theory, that could be 15 stat blocks for the 15 Great Worms. But we might not actually get stat blocks for Great Worms. They might just be like, you add these things to it, like it's like almost like a template. Like take an ancient red dragon, boost up its hit points, and do this. Or they might actually give us stat blocks. I'm not sure. Yeah, 30 tops. Even that would include the 15 Great Worms, if I was right on that. They very briefly touched on, like, they mentioned the concept of draconic gifts, which seems like a blessing that a dragon could give you. I don't know if draconic gifts are things that dragons gain for themselves, like abilities for the dragons, or things that players gain. I'm not really sure how that works. So, let's see. Like I said, I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's going to be a great book. James Wyatt was super pumped to talk about it, which was also exciting to see. He didn't feel fake. He didn't feel disingenuine. Like, he was really excited to talk about it. And I do honestly think he wanted to talk about it more, but he was probably reined in to only be able to say certain things. They mentioned the spells. They said that there's some of them, they were tied after major dragon figures in D&D lore, but we didn't get any more information about that. If you guys really want, people have been talking about the D&D Celebration map. I figured it out. I got all the puzzles complete. Honestly, I guessed at a lot of them and got them right. Because just like some of them were I figured out, and others were super difficult for me. And like I just took some wild guesses at times, and I got it. So I could do a separate video on completing the D&D Celebration map if you guys want. Yeah, Highlander, the one. Yeah, I saw you guys just bringing that up. That's true. Oh, let's see. Now, a single mention of IO. Yeah, channel ... I'm guessing it's probably the same thing, right? You're right, probably retconned out with this whole concept of the first world that Bahamut and Tiamat created the original plane of existence before everybody else, like all the other planes. There was the first world that then became the multiverse. That's new lore, so I guess IO didn't exist to create the dragons first? I don't know. Let's see. Look up Sardior, Sardior, the dragon. That's the ruby dragon, the god of gem dragons. No, they said there's only three feats, folks, in the book. So the draconic gifts are not feats. There are 3 feats, which are the gift of... Well, I see what you're saying. There's the gift of metallic dragon, gift of draconic dragon, or gift of metallic dragon, gift of gem dragon. But there was a preview art that I covered in a previous video called something called a draconic gift, which was like the Echo of Dragon sight, and it was like almost set it up like a magic item, listed as very rare and a draconic gift as opposed to like a wondrous item. So those are separate. Let's see. All right, I will do a video on the map later tonight. All right, well, thank you all for helping me reach 80K. Thank you for getting me to just shy of 500 live viewers on this live stream, which is nutty to me. I do want to show you guys something, though, real quick. So let's take a look at the schedule. So here is the schedule for D&D Celebration. Here's what we just did. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons revealed. Right, so there's this DM table Immersion. I'm obviously we're missing it, but you got Sly Flourish in there. You got Abria. You got a whole bunch of good people in there. And then if we come to day 3, which starts tomorrow, at noon is the Ask the Sage live section. I highly recommend everybody go to this if you can and bombard Jeremy Crawford with questions about how the Harengon's rabbit hop works, because so many of you have asked me how the Harengon's rabbit hop works. I asked Jeremy, I tweeted at him in hopes that maybe he would respond, but he didn't. So I'm hoping this is the venue for everybody to get the answer. How does the Harengon's rabbit hop works? Do I still have to have movement to use it? Can I go vertical? Does it extend my movement? Does it not? Do I have to use the maximum movement? It doesn't say I can move up to my proficiency bonus. It says I move that amount, so I have to move the full amount. I don't know. There's a lot of questions about the rabbit hop. Also, does Hair Trigger interact with reliable talent like so many of us think it does? This is the place to do it. Get him live, where he has to make an answer on the spot. But most importantly, folks, tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time is the Future of D&D with Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, Wayne Reninger, Liz Shue here. This is where they're going to announce whatever is that $169 book bundle thing. Also, because remember, we know the roadmap for D&D for the rest of this year, right? It's Fizban's on October 19th and Strixhaven on, whatever it is, November 20th, 21st, whatever it is. And then that's all we've had information on for D&D. We know nothing about what's coming next year other than those various tweets from Ray Wininger saying, like, 2 classic campaign settings, 2 new campaign settings, and 1 returning campaign setting. But we have nothing more than that. So I'm hoping this will provide us some more information. But ultimately, keep an eye here on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't and click the notification bell, because likely Amazon at around midnight to about 1 a.m. On the 26th, they will likely leak more information about that one pre-article we saw. It will likely get leaked then, and then we'll cover it then when it happens. So, but yes, I will be doing the same thing we did today, this live react. We'll be live reacting to the Future of D&D stream tomorrow as well. So if you want to come hang out with me tomorrow and see what happens with the Future of Dungeons & Dragons together as a group, I highly recommend you do so, because I'd love to have you here. It's been a lot of fun reacting with all of you guys. It makes it that much more fun. And even if things are not going and becoming the way we want them to, it's nice to commiserate with other people who have a passion about the game that we all know and love. So, anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Am I playing D2 Resurrected at all? I have not picked it up. I'm still not sure how I feel about Blizzard with everything that's going on. So, I just left that alone. Anyway, thank you, Colton Alexander, for also subscribing to the channel. Guys, we broke 80K. Let's go for 100 for PAX Unplugged, and I'll find some venue, and we'll rent it out, and we'll have a big Nerd Immersion meet and greet, and I'll give out a bunch of shit, and it'll be a blast. So, anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.